The collaborative genius of Lennon and McCartney created many of the most celebrated compositions ever recorded, including two heartfelt, evocative pieces of musical theater that demonstrate why the Beatles are the most impactful group of the rock era of any era. The story of the powerful double A-side masterpiece, Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever, next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest stars and the greatest songs of all time. I tell you what, if you love music, you'll love this channel. Make sure to subscribe below right now and check out even more content at our page on Patreon. Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever. Two sentimental and artistic classics by the Beatles that were coupled as an unplanned double A-sided single that is one of the most potent combos of the rock era, of any era, and really a serious candidate, a frontrunner for the greatest single in the history of the whole thing, the whole shebang. As we go into why that's true, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I always wear. I love these things. At Zenni.com, you can customize your eyewear with a prescription lens or non-prescription lens. If you just want to look hip or, that hip look or a color, or a particular style of lens. Check it out at Zenni.com. Back to the Beatles. Although the pair of songs were heartwarmingly nostalgic, the tracks had contrasting arrangements and epitomized the fundamental difference between Paul McCartney and John Lennon. McCartney's Penny Lane reflected Sir Paul's whimsical charm. Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. While Lennon's Strawberry Fields Forever demonstrated John's intriguing, dark introspection. Strawberry Fields. Everybody has a favorite Beatle, and depending on which of these songs you fancy more, it just might define your inner workings as a human being. Anyway, Penny Lane was McCartney's feel-good stroll down memory lane, illustrating the sights and sounds that he fondly encountered on a half-mile stretch of road in suburban Liverpool. Penny Lane is really a typical suburban thoroughfare, nothing special really, but Paul McCartney's imagery painted just a vivid picture of a time when life was full of innocence and starry-eyed optimism. That's what makes the tune so magical and so potently nostalgic. And really, if you think about the place where you grew up, it also may seem like nothing special. But so many years later, as we allow our memories to consume us at times of sorrow, and as technology takes over, we really long for those simple times, those simple places and people from a time before the world became so complex. And that's the essence of Penny Lane. Stop and say hello. Most of the observations McCartney referenced in his lyrics sadly have not survived, but the barbershop mentioned in the first verse and the fire station alluded to in verse 3 are still there. The bus shelter where McCartney and Lennon used to meet to take a bus together to the city center is gone. Actually, the shelter was replaced in the 80s by a restaurant named Sgt. Pepper's Bistro, but it has since closed. I guess one day McCartney was sitting at that famous bus shelter in the middle of the roundabout on Penny Lane waiting for his buddy John. I just love it. While sitting there, Paul began jotting down things that he saw, including the barber shop with pictures of its clients and a nurse selling poppies for Remembrance Day, November 11th, of course marking the day that World War I officially ended. As the song's chorus goes, Penny Lane was in Paul's ears and his eyes, and he portrayed them just beautifully. So we really can share his special reflections. The recording of Penny Lane is highlighted by the piquant trumpet, which was actually added after the rest of the song was finished. McCartney, I guess, was watching a program on the BBC that featured a musical group called the New Philharmonia Orchestra performing a rendition of Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 2. He was impressed with the group's use of a trumpet, and he actually thought it would add a nice touch to Penny Lane, and of course it did, just brilliant. Paul asked the New Philharmonia member Dave Mason, not to be confused with Dave Mason of Traffic, he asked him to play on Penny Lane. And Dave Mason enthusiastically showed up at the EMI studio in London with, get this, 9 different trumpets. He eventually settled on using a B-flat piccolo trumpet. McCartney gives the credit for translating the trumpet line to legendary producer, the late George Martin. What a legend. Paul sang the part that he thought would be great over a trumpet bed, and Martin transcribed what Paul wanted to Dave Mason. Among his many talents, Sir George was just really good at communicating with session musicians to really convey what he and the Beatles wanted them to play. The implementation of the piquant trumpet was another example of how the Beatles and their invaluable collaborator George Martin crashed through conventional boundaries and just innovated the process of recording music. And in my eyes. There is no guitar on Penny Lane to be found. Now, John Lennon played the piano parts and George Harrison played the conga drum. George Martin believed that Penny Lane was collectively the Beatles' finest single. Martin and the Fab Four loved Mason's performance on Penny Lane so much that they actually hired him to play on A Day in the Life, Magical Mystery Tour, and All You Need Is Love. All you need is love. Dave Mason passed away in 2011 at 85. Rest in peace, Mr. Mason. Just invaluable contributions to music. After the release of Penny Lane as a double A-side 45, street signs with the same name were constantly being stolen by Beatles fans. Liverpool city officials finally gave up. And rather than keep replacing the stolen street signs, they'd simply paint Penny Lane on the side of the buildings. That practice was halted in 2007, and the city installed more theft-resistant signs. But overzealous fans have still managed to steal some of the new signs. How cool would it be to have an actual Penny Lane sign? That's one of the many things that I need to get for sure. So Al Di Meola recorded an instrumental version of Penny Lane on his 2013 album All Your Life. Count Basie recorded a swing version on his Basie on the Beatles album in 1969. Elvis Costello performed a cover of Penny Lane backed by McCartney's band at the White House in 2010. That was when Paul was given the Gershwin Award. Penny Lane is in my ears. And of course, the 2000 Cameron Crowe movie, Almost Famous, it paid tribute to the song as one of the central characters played by Kate Hudson was named Penny Lane. Now let's flip to the other side of this revered double A-side single and experience John Lennon's psychoanalysis set to music titled Strawberry Fields Forever. Strawberry Fields Forever. Lennon based the track on his childhood recollection of playing in the garden of Strawberry Field. It's a children's home that was managed by the Salvation Army in a suburban area of Liverpool named Woolton. One of the joys of John Lennon's childhood was attending the garden party held each summer in Calderstones Park near his home, where a Salvation Army brass band played. John's auntie Mimi Smith recalled, and I quote, "There was something about that place that always fascinated John. He could see it from his window. He used to hear the Salvation Army band playing at the garden party, and he would pull me along saying, 'Hurry up, Mimi, we're gonna be late.'" End of quote. Can you imagine young John Lennon doing that? It's just amazing. Lennon recalled Aunt Mimi's strict warning to not play on the grounds of Strawberry Field, to which young John replied, "They can't hang you for it." John fine-tuned his response to Mimi in the chorus with the line, "Nothing to get hung about, Strawberry Fields Forever." Nothing to get hung about. And John Lennon wrote Strawberry Fields Forever in Almeria, Spain, while filming Richard Lester's How I Won the War. It was in the fall of 1966. The Beatles had just retired from touring at that point. That was after one of the most trying times of the band's career. John was in Spain without his bandmates at that time. The timeline was shortly after Lennon made the infamous "more popular than Jesus" statement while being the target of mob violence in reaction to their unintentional snubbing of Philippines First Lady Imelda Marcos.
But I'm not saying that we're better or greater or comparing us with Jesus Christ as a person or God as a thing or whatever it is.
When the band reunited from the layover to record new material, they found a rejuvenated spirit that George Harrison called a more profound ambiance. Harrison was basking in the enlightenment that he had experienced during his trip to India, and John Lennon stated that when he returned from Spain, he was never so glad to see his brothers. The Beatles just had a burning desire to create something extraordinary for their first recording since the great album Revolver. There was strict competition, really, at that moment, if you think about it. Extensive inspiration could be another word for it, to drive music to a higher plane. I mean, the Beach Boys had just released Pet Sounds. Motown was in full force with, the Supremes and the Four Tops throwing down the gauntlet. And then there's Bob Dylan, the Byrds, the Stones, the Animals. They were all raising the bar. It was just a glorious time in popular music. Strawberry Fields Forever was originally written on an acoustic guitar in the key of C major. The working title for the song was It's Not Too Bad. In the first version that Lennon committed to tape, there was no reference to Strawberry Field, actually. Like Penny Lane, though, Strawberry Fields Forever conveys nostalgia for the Beatles' early years in Liverpool. While both songs refer to actual landmarks, McCartney said that the two numbers also had strong surrealistic and psychedelic overtones surrounding their evocative psyche. George Martin recalled that when he first heard Strawberry Fields Forever, I love this, he thought it conjured up a hazy, impressionistic dream world. Nobody could say it better.
I think I know, yes, but it's...
Author Steve Turner, who wrote the 2016 book Beatles 66, The Revolutionary Year, described the song's opening line, Let Me Take You Down, as establishing Lennon as a spiritual leader in keeping with his statements in the songs The Word from Rubber Soul, Aim, the B-side of Paperback Writer, and Tomorrow Never Knows from Revolver. However, Lennon stated that the lyric in Strawberry Fields, that nothing is real, reflects the concept of illusion as expressed in the Hindu teachings that Lennon was reading during his trip in Spain, where he felt lonely and just empty inside.
Nothing is real.
The recording of Strawberry Fields began in 1966. The Fab Four spent 45 hours in the studio, over 5 weeks developing 3 versions of the track from 26 takes. The final version was a combination of 2 of the 3 versions, Take 7 and Take 26, which were different in mood, tempo, and structure that included many groundbreaking artistic elements that just underscores the song's historical significance.
Strawberry Fields Forever, Take 7, remix.
With only a pair of editing scissors, 2 tape machines, and a variable speed control, Beatles engineer Geoff Emerick compensated for the differences in key and speed by increasing the pace of the first version and decreasing the tempo of the second. He then spliced the versions starting with the orchestral score in the middle of the second chorus. Since Take 7 didn't include a chorus after the first verse, Emerick also spliced in the first 7 words of the second chorus from that take. So the pitch shifting and joining the 2 versions really gave John Lennon's lead vocal just a mystical, swirling quality.
Strawberry Fields Forever.
I mean, modern day musicians would have their minds absolutely blown witnessing the creative and meticulous brilliance of the production of any Beatles record. It's just incredible that George Martin and Geoff Emerick were able to make such incredibly timeless music all the way back in 1966, that in the 21st century still sounds like cutting-edge innovation. Which is why when people claim the Beatles are overrated, I just roll my eyes and laugh at the complete ignorance of that belief. I mean, I know music is subjective. I say it all the time. But what the Beatles did for popular music can never, and I mean never, be overstated. In my estimation, along with George Martin, the Beatles are the most innovative creators in the history of really any art form. Think about it. If you go and listen to She Loves You, Yeah, 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 it's a fun-loving, simple pop song from 1963. Then if you immediately listen to Michelle or Norwegian Wood from Rubber Soul in 65, the progression of the lyrics and music is mind-blowing. In just 2 years, they evolved that far. I mean, even if you think about Strawberry Fields or even Sgt. Pepper. That evolution, that maturity in just 3 years, it's unbelievable. It'd be like going from the prehistoric era to the Industrial Revolution overnight. The Beatles evolved more than anyone, and everybody, and I mean everybody, stands on their shoulders in terms of musical experimentation. Back to Strawberry Fields, I'll get off my soapbox. Paul McCartney played the ethereal intro to Strawberry Fields on a mellotron, which is a keyboard that triggers loops of recorded taped instruments at different pitches. It is not a synthesized sound. All the recordings are of real musical instruments. The flute effect of the mellotron evokes a flashback sequence that really does take you down to the Strawberry Fields that each of us experienced in our childhood. It was a time before artificial intelligence, before the internet, before video games, when children used a vivid imagination to create unforgettable experiences that were shared with others. It just makes my heart swell every time I hear this perfect single because I think of that. I remember as a young boy creating an imaginary boat on my grandparents' farm that was actually a group of stacked railroad ties and a cattle rack braced on 55-gallon steel drums. A vast alfalfa field that surrounded our imaginary boat was our fictitious ocean. My cousins and my siblings and I called the figment the boat. We used to play on it for hours at a time, pretending that we were, protecting the oceans against pirates and other enemies of the sea. Playing on the imaginary boat was one of my favorite memories growing up. Just as playing at the Strawberry Field was a favorite recollection for John Lennon. Another unique effect that's heard on Strawberry Fields Forever is the swarmandal, a musical instrument from India played by George Harrison. Of course, George Harrison. Once again, the brass arrangement was created by George Martin, along with the cello arrangement. The song fades out with interplay between the cello, the swarmandal, and McCartney playing the electric guitar. Then there is, of course, the freeform fade-back coda a few seconds after the fade-out, with the return of the mellotron, this time played by John Lennon. A haunting tone in the fade-back is achieved by recording the mellotron's swinging flutes, setting in reverse, with scattered Ringo Starr drumming, discordant brass, and murmuring, after which the song fades for a second time. The coda in Strawberry Fields Forever is actually the longest coda heard in a Beatles recording. It also includes the famous "I buried Paul" line, "I buried Paul," which actually Beatles conspiracy theorists have jumped all over, and the Paul is dead thing. Not to be a naysayer, but if you listen closely, it's actually saying cranberry sauce. John Lennon was so proud of Strawberry Fields Forever. He regarded the song as his best work with the Beatles and his most honest offering. I have to agree with that, one of my favorites ever. Artists who have covered Strawberry Fields Forever include Richie Havens, Todd Rundgren. Peter Gabriel has a great version.
And nothing to get hung about.
Ben Harper, Debbie Harry. In 1990, a version by the Manchester group Candy Flip became a top 10 hit in the UK and Ireland. After John Lennon was shot and killed in New York City in late 1980, a 2.5-acre section of Central Park was named Strawberry Fields. Been there, I'm sure some of you have too, in honor of one of music's greatest icons. Strawberry Fields Forever was the first track that the Beatles recorded after the Revolver album, and it was intended to be placed on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Instead of including it on Sgt. Pepper, though, they acquiesced to record company pressure to release new material and put it out as the backed-with track for Penny Lane on a double A-side 45. It was the first Beatles single in the UK to be presented in a picture sleeve format. The front of the sleeve contained a studio photo that again demonstrated the band's adoption of facial hair, while the back cover featured individual pictures of the four Beatles as infants. Just unbelievably brilliant. Strawberry Fields Forever was actually later included on Magical Mystery Tour, the LP in the States, a decision that the Beatles were not happy about. The US album version of Magical Mystery Tour also included Penny Lane. The Penny Lane Strawberry Fields Forever double single peaked at number 2 on the record retailer chart in the UK, which broke a 4-year run for the Beatles of having nothing but number 1 singles in the UK. That's a head scratcher for sure. Although Penny Lane did not reach the top of the British singles chart, it was, of course, a number 1 smash on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1967, along with Canada, Holland, New Zealand, Australia, and Germany. Strawberry Fields Forever peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, which for the Beatles was odd, but the avant-garde nature of the track was a big departure for AM top 40 radio stations that were used to playing the Beatles' infectious pop songs. Both of these songs are deeply personal reflections of John and Paul's innocence, and since their release, they've become our innocence as listeners. My dad raised me on the classics. I mean, I've talked about this a lot. Ever since I was a few years old. At the top of that list was the Fab Four. My dad was there when they played on the Ed Sullivan Show. He was just a little kid. And he bought everything, every record they ever put out, the second it was available. Of course, a trait that he would certainly pass on to me. I feel like I grew up on the Beatles. I wasn't around when they were together, of course, but because my dad brought me up on his every memory of them, I feel like I witnessed it in real time as I was discovering their music through his stories and listening to their albums in order as he would have. And as he introduced me to them line upon line, he gave it to me from the first to the last. That being said, I want to share something that's very near and dear to my heart. You would tell me things like, remember that Paul is dead?
Mm-hmm.
You told me about the different clues. You know?
Yeah.
Remember how there was this rumor when you were growing? Tell me
I
about
can't
that.
remember.
There was a rumor that he had died in a car wreck or something.
Yeah.
And they had replaced him with a different Paul.
Well, it's because he was barefoot going on Abbey Road.
And you'd take out these records and you'd show me. And then I would go research it.
Yeah.
And we had the World books. We used to have those encyclopedias.
Yeah, World Back Encyclopedia.
And I'd look
They
it
were
up.
old.
And you'd be able to look, and it would tell you, there'd be clues about Paul on the cover of the different things. And I don't have Abbey Road, but Abbey Road, he was barefoot, so he was supposed to be the person.
Well, the rest of them weren't.
Right, John
Or you
Lennon.
could play a record backwards, and it would say Paul is dead. Paul is
Yeah.
dead. Yeah.
And
Which
John,
I never could understand, but
yeah, exactly. I think that they said that he was saying Paul is dead on Strawberry Fields. He's actually saying cranberry sauce. Paul is dead. I don't know how they got that out of that, but I buried Paul. That's what it is.
Oh.
Cranberry sauce. I buried Paul, and so they made it sound like that. But so you told me a little bit about that. I think you just told me about it, and then I went and researched it all out. So I know all the clues about Paul is dead. You know how in this one he looks different than them, and on every cover from Rubber Soul on, they had some little clue about Paul is dead.
Yeah.
Anyway.
how about the rumor that Badfinger was actually the Beatles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He told me about that.
That was
one.
always the rumor. Badfinger was really the Beatles. Not.
Yeah, I interviewed my dad a few years before he passed away about those times. And sometime I'll share more with you. But that's why the Beatles are so precious to me. That's why the Beatles are so precious to you. They are the through line, the tie that binds so many of us and our loved ones and fondest memories together. We'll never have another Beatles. They're in our ears and in our eyes. They're in our hearts and in our souls. Leave us a comment about the incomparable Beatles. Share your memories. How did the Beatles, were they a through line for you in your personal history and relationships? I want to hear about this. Definitely want to hear about it. Let's talk about it in the comments. To get the Beatles music on vinyl or their merch, click on the links below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Be a part of this community. Also, check us out on Patreon. Check out our content there. Help us keep the music alive. It's really important. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe out there. Stay golden.